okay, you can't show that here. Sorry, move along, you can't show that here. But we do want you to show it in Germany, Spain, Bolivia, and Romulus. And the solution needs to work in both Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. Hey, come on in.
We just barely
Okay.
started.
My name is Charlie Jackson. This is my partner in crime, Damon Logan. We are the web developers at Fujifilm Sono site. We also hire other web devs, so if you need a job, come see us. This is, and these are the ultrasound systems, the sample ones we make. That costs $65,000, so please, if you feel it, make sure I'm not looking. Okay? We make these things, we sell these around the world. Our main site is translated into 21 locales. But the issue here is that because of regulatory restrictions around the world, we can't talk about a product like this Edge system here until it's approved for sale in that country, which kind of makes sense. If something's not allowed to be sold in Japan, you can't talk about it in Japan, which makes our job interesting. Now, Drupal's ability to publish and unpublish content, especially in Drupal 8, is really cool, and it seemed like the perfect solution to this. If you can't talk about a product, well, you unpublish the translation for that product. But of course, there's more to the problem than that. Here's where it starts to get interesting. As soon as we get regulatory approval, we set the translation to a published state, all is good. But regulatory approval happens faster in Europe than in the United States. So what happens is that we need to publish the translations before we publish the US English source. And how many people here have done multilingual sites? Drupal 8? Oh, good, yeah, because this gets very interesting here. So the idea is, so you just keep the English language source unpublished until it's finally approved, right? Doesn't work that way. When you unpublish the source document, all the child translations also disappear. So the problem was, how do you unpublish the parent source while keeping the children published? Lights on there. First solution that we came up with, one of the developers we worked with in New Zealand said, well, we'll just add a checkbox here. So we're all familiar with the little bottom corner here. So we added this checkbox, and if on a product page it's available in this particular region, then that's there. And you build out the views, and you wrote a bunch of custom code, and it fell apart pretty quickly. Our content editors, we're the only two Drupal guys at Sono site. Content editors, they know a little bit about Drupal, they know a little bit about HMTL, a little bit about CCS, but it was confusing. Which button do I press? And more often than not, they'd press the wrong button, press the wrong combination of buttons. We needed a lot of custom code to make this work because it's not really the Drupal way of doing stuff. When we tried to integrate it with other models, a lot of custom code didn't play well with this. The views became way more complicated. Menus were more complicated. hreflang tags, those the little metacode that says if you're on an English page here, where's your corresponding Spanish page? Those got all messed up. The search engine said, oh, okay, I'm seeing something I don't think I'm supposed to see, but I'm going to search it anyway. We get in trouble with legal and regulatory. It was a pain. David can tell you about this, getting new devs up to speed on this crazy clown car that we were building here. And it really wasn't the Drupal way. You can kind of see the code we were dealing with here. It was a little bit more than frightening.
Let me just interject one thing. Our source language used to be US. It's kind of an assumption. It's US English, so yeah. Sorry.
Okay, solution number 2, we ended up calling the Ghost language. What we did here is, this was all in theory as of about 2 years ago, we created a copy of our source US English language and turned all the lights on everything in its brother was published, but we hid it. So all the stuff was there, but you couldn't see it, hence Ghost. And then we made US English just another translation. And we weren't sure this was the best way to do it, so we got to know Kristen and Amy from Book 42. I mean, they literally wrote the book on translation. They've since become really good friends. And I'm sad they're not here yet. But Then we also chatted with the engineers we knew at Lingotech and SmartLink to get some really honest feedback. I said, guys, this is what we're thinking. You know translation inside out, upside down. What do you think of this? And this is kind of the answer we got. Everywhere, what we asked, they said, yeah, it's a sound theory. It sounds good. It sounds like a Drupal way of doing things. But you tell the truth, we've never heard anybody do anything like this, which is great motivation. Okay, without the ghost, my favorite metaphor for this is a string of Christmas tree lights. So here, English language source, and all your translations here, it's easy to unscrew or unpublish any translation, and just that light goes off. But if you try to unscrew your English language source, everybody goes away. With the ghost, here is our new hidden source that nobody gets to see unless you're an admin or a content provider. And English US is just another translation, but it still remains the default language, which made working with Lingotech and SmartLink interesting because most translation vendors expect that your source language and your default language are going to be the same. And this is one instance where you had to work with the engineers and say, okay, how do we make this happen? Okay, so with the ghost, we created the ghost and then made a copy of the English language source. It became another translation. So effectively we had this was a copy of this, but everything is turned on over here. We chose English Antarctica as our ghost language because we figured, well, okay, there is a language code called ENAK, and it's English, but I doubt we're going to be selling many ultrasound systems in Antarctica. You never know, but I thought we're safe. The other option we were looking at was English Creole, but we settled on English AK, and of course English is country code for US, and again, source was not the same as the default language. Here's where things get sticky. Building. I should have put that on airplane mode. Okay. We can edit the recording, can't we? Okay. So turning a D7 non-ghosted site into a D7 ghost site, kind of tricky to do that. So we tried a bunch of different ways, and eventually we settled on we take a full MySQL dump of the database. ENUS is a pretty unique string, so we changed the source for anything that was tagged ENUS, we tagged it to ENAK, re-imported the database, and then to create our English US, we just copied all of that stuff from ENAK to English US. Sounds pretty straightforward, but it gets stickier. Okay. Airplane mode. Should have done that before. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're all familiar mostly with MySQL dump. We just took a dump out there. Save backups. After doing this many, many times, we figured that okay, you're going to need the languages table. You're going to need your sitemap and your sitemaps because once the ghost is live again, the site is going to look identical to what it did before you put the ghost on. So we figured let's just keep the same sitemaps here. Don't have to regenerate those silly things. Okay, this was fun to work with. Site is not showing my closing quote over there. Oh, there it is. Sorry. So, any Unix hackers here familiar with sed? Yeah. Okay, sed, for the folks who didn't raise their hand, works kind of like a search and replace at the command line. And here, because it's a stream editor, sed, you can take these massive gargantuan text files, which a MySQL dump is, and do very, very quick search and replaces on them. So here, this says search anytime you find the string ENUS, change it to ENAK, do it globally. Here's your source, and write out to a file called ghost.sql. We emptied the database. This was a really cool command we developed to empty out a database very quickly. We didn't want to remove it. We just wanted to get rid of all those tables, so we didn't have to futz with permissions and things like that. Re-import the ghost, fairly straightforward. All the tables that we saved before, we bring those back. And now we define the ghost. Basically over here, here's the new ghost source language. It is now enabled. We changed US English to default. And then of course took more backups of that. Okay. We wanted to make sure that there's no language prefix for English US. Business requirements is that when somebody goes to sonosite.com, the VPs do not want a /en or /us on the English site. That's fine for our German and French and Spanish sites, but they wanted just a bare URL for the English language site. So we went into the languages table, emptied out the prefix, worked well. Lingotech was also a problem because Lingotech does not know how to talk to English Antarctica. We worked with Clark and some of the other people we got to know really well there, and it looks like that when you install Lingotech, it installs another column in your languages table. And that column, unfortunately, you can't control that through the UI, but it is a mapping. So if you're familiar with TMGMT, TMGMT basically gives you an opportunity to map what Drupal is calling your languages to what your translation provider is calling it. And for Google or Microsoft Translate, things like that, there's slightly different language codes. So the mapping here provides a mapping for Lingotech. And in this case, we just said, okay, for source language, locale is going to be English US all over again. And we can send it the stuff from the Ghost. Lingotech says, aha, I've got some stuff English US, I know exactly what to do with that. Goes through the Goose, flows right back again very nicely. Next big piece is that all of our US content was renamed English Antarctica to be the source language. The trick here was figuring out, okay, how do we copy all of that that Antarctic source back into an English language translation so we can do stuff with it. And translation seemed to be the key. We wrote, well, we already had written a TMGMT plugin that turned English into British English. Just doing a quick word substitution, it knows between 300 and 500 British spellings. We revisited that and just took out the piece where it did the swap out, so it just became a pass-through filter. And we thought this will be kind of good. And in about 2 to 4 days, we could manually translate all our taxonomies, all our nodes, everything on the site. This became unworkable because we had a bunch of other stuff on our plate to do. So we scratched our heads, is there a faster way to do this? We actually contacted Miro Dieteker, who's one of the chief guys for TMGMT. He's a great guy. Drupal community is fantastic, and he's one of these great guys here. And asked, well, gee, Miro, is there anything like a TMGMT drush command that we could throw into a script and it would walk through all of our nodes, all of our blocks, all of our text strings, everything, and just run it through our pass-through filter? And he said, well, you could do that, be a lot of work, but he said, maybe you just stay away from TMGMT and write a quick MySQL field-to-field copy script. And that was a wonderful idea, and we were eternally grateful for doing that. He offered to write it for us, and he says, we know this site a heck of a lot better, and if it blows up, we don't want our lawyers coming to visit you. But I'm giving him a lot of credit here because this was a fantastic idea of his. So we generated a list of fields that would be affected by Antarctic to US translation and began building a script to do the copying. This was also kind of challenging to figure out which fields do you touch and which fields don't you touch. Particularly because how many content types do we have in there now? Do we have 20, 30?
Or so. About 2,000 maybe.
Maybe about 20, 24. So one of the ways we did it is we took, in my last talk in DrupalCon, we talked about a script that dumped out your MySQL tables in XML format, one table at a time. And the reason we did that is, okay, we're going to start with an empty basic page, take a dump, and then there's got to be a way to say make a MySQL dump of that in XML, one file per table, then make one change to it, and then take a separate MySQL dump this way, and then we do a directory compare. Saying, okay, what's different between the two? what changed. And we quickly learned the maintenance and the housekeeping stuff that Drupal does. Okay, well, we can ignore the watchdog stuff and maybe the session cookies and things like that, but here are the fields that were affected, and here are the fields that we want to leave alone. So that made things a lot easier. It was laborious going through all the content types, but it gave us a nice list of fields. We gave it a very elegant script, and this is basically an overview of what the script is. For every field in the list, we said, okay, dive into the database here. If language equals English Antarctica, copy out that row, copy it back to English US, and stuff it back in the database. We also had to make a couple of tweaks here because we want all of our users. We want all of our users to be English US, not Antarctic English. A couple of URL aliases, entity translations. We want to be. Oh, that's a typo there. Oh, no, that's not right. So if this was also interesting. This is one of the things we got through many hours of iteration. Entity translation. If the source is not English, AK for Drupal 7, sometimes it's empty, sometimes it's who knows what. If it's not English Antarctica, make it English Antarctica. Finally, we got a chance to get rid of this available in this region stuff. Finally, we could just make very simple views that said, well, okay, I don't really care about whether that available as the region is clicked or not. We got rid of the button, everything in there. We had about 2 or 3 custom modules that were completely dedicated to handling this nonsense here. Checked the DB for misdependencies, and finally got rid of that box. Made things a heck of a lot easier for folks, and finally we were very happy we were doing things the Drupal way. To make sure that nobody accidentally stumbled across the Ghost who wasn't supposed to be there, we use path access and language access so that anybody and their brother can see the English US language, everything else, but only admins and content creators could see our source Antarctic language. And of course we fixed robots.txt too. And now it was very simple. If we want to turn on or turn off a translation, we just go down here, publish a translation, even for English US. It did create an extra step for our writers, though, because now the writers who are used to just typing something in, clicking save, and it's published, now need to go and remember, says, oh, okay, publish it in source, and then you translate it with finger quotes to English US, and of course anything else that needs to be translated. That was a bit of an education process. It's still ongoing here. But then it got even more interesting because they said, oh, okay, this makes it very easy to turn the lights on and off for English US or anybody else. But we have about a dozen products now and 21 locales. Do the math. And just 2 people on the web team here. They say, well, this says it better than I can. What products are available in Brazil? And where can I talk about our IVAS product? And where can I talk about which things? And there was no really, as Damon puts it, no single point of authority. It was all checking through emails and asking people and making phone calls and often getting conflicting information. Because we had the Ghost in hand now and things became a lot simpler, we built this. This is a very simple product control panel. Let me get to a close-up here. Oh, yeah, we also added this bit here, so if you hover over it, the dashboard tells you when it was last changed, things like that. We needed an audit trail here because if legal came by and said, why are you talking about our export product in Brazil? Who told you could do that? Up until then, it was just around scrambling around and saying, well, okay, who said this and where's that email? Here's our audit trail, and later on we built a log in here as well. And here's what it looks like. Basically, it is a matrix here. You have products down here, and of course English, and all the rest of our locales across the top. And this controls, originally the original version controlled publish and unpublish. Only admins are allowed to use this panel. And Damon and I were talking about maybe making the update button just available to our boss, because you can updating this when the products became available, what used to be a pretty laborious process, now turns it into, obviously its form takes about 2 seconds. And in 2 seconds, you do a great deal of damage.
So let me just note out there, you'll notice across the top line of the grid there, we have all of these different locales. This is not necessarily language-based. It is a locality-based model, so that we have, you'll notice there's several Englishes as we're offering to, for whatever reason, we have bundled up several regions as regions. The country of Africa is frankly a little confusing, but it's not our call.
Not our choice.
You'll also notice we have a couple of different variants on Spanish. We have a Latin American Spanish and we have a Spain Spanish. The language, the translation piece of it is the same. And we treat the English locales other than the US, we also, maybe I'm jumping ahead.
No, this is good. This is a good segue.
For the other Englishes, we have a little module that does what we refer to as the Britishizer. So essentially what it does is it just changes the spellings and color to color and all of that. So there is a little bit of nuance. The main thrust of this is publishing and unpublishing in a locale, independent way. The source is really the master switch. If it goes out of the market, the source language piece, if it's end of life for that device, it becomes unpublished at the source at ENAK. So there's just a little bit of nuance in there.
Yeah, and that's kind of a close-up of what it looks like. But of course, that brought up more challenges for us because they said, okay, now that you have this wonderful Ghost on board, we have a big problem on our site that we've never been able to handle before. Will the Ghost help us out with this? The problem was, well, okay, we sell these hyper expensive things all around the world. This thing here is $65,000. So if you steal it, don't let me see you do it. Okay. But, doesn't have any guts in it. So, and our newer stuff and our bigger stuff is even more expensive. But thing is, wouldn't it be nice if we could talk about these products on our blog pages and on our other pages in the site? The issue there is, of course, let's say that we have a blog entry that talks about Dr. So-and-so who has had incredible success and saved hundreds of lives with this Sonocite Edge 2 product. But of course, we can't talk about Sonocite Edge 2 in countries X, Y, Z, and Q until it gets approval. Which means that the way it's doing now is either don't have any product lists or link to your product pages on any of your blog pages. Well, why do we have a website if we can't point to our products? Yeah. The whole point is to generate leads and sell products. Or we just have our one poor writer here says, well, okay, anytime a product comes online, the lights come on, we want you to go to all 21 copies of that and make the appropriate edits and try to remember where it's available and where it's not. And if you make a mistake, go back again. And, well, that works out just fine for the English variants and the things that kind of look like English. But when you're dealing with Korean, and we have Korean, Japanese, simplified Chinese, and Russian on the site, and trying to dig through that without making a mistake and getting the thing right became really problematic. And they go, well, forget it, we're just not going to talk about our product. We're not going to talk about our products on any other pages except our product pages because we can now turn them on and off.
I need to edit everything between the birdhouse and the garbage can. The ideogram, the pictogram languages are particularly challenging to look at the source and figure out I need to add this between here and here
And doing it so it makes sense.
yeah.
You know, it's like if you can reword it and things like that, it just became very problematic for Per Roberto, who is our new writer now. I think our last writer we had, she jumped off a cliff or something. Okay, so what we did here, so this gave us more ideas. The wonderful thing about Drupal is that it gives you ideas to solve really difficult problems. So we expanded the control panel, so not only did it go in and, you know, what this does under the hood is for any node that has been affected here, it goes in, loads the node, and either sets or clears the translation is published flag, and also updates who made the change and when it was last updated, and then resaves the node. It doesn't do this at the database level, but just node import, node export, so that anything that wants to know about the node knows about it. We hooked into this and said, okay, at the same time you're doing this, since you already know which is available and where, we're going to generate some special CSS as well here. In years past, we added a CSS class to the template for the body pages, so that on any page of the site, you could look at the body tag and there's a class there that tells you what language the page is in. That made it particularly easy to come up with styles that look something like this. This is a snippet that was generated by the tool for our synchronicity product. And this is kind of interesting here because right now synchronicity is not available in too many places except the United States. So here's what it is: display none. And you can use this class on a div, on a span, on an image, on a p tag, you name it. And the nice thing is it just works. Here's kind of what it looks like when you look at the source, and it's fairly simple to train a content creator to go, okay, anytime you're going to be talking about the Sonos Site Edge 2 system, start it with this, end it with this, and when it's translated, the nice part about all the translation providers we work with is that they preserve the underlying HTML, so this stuff doesn't get touched. P class equals Sonos Site Edge 2 is translated to Korean as P class equals Sonos Site Edge 2. Comes across just well.
Let me stick something in here.
Yeah.
The solve that we're trying to do is to have a source language document that we send the translation, comes back, and the actual content that is there is the same. What we're solving for with this is we can refer to things in a unified way, put a class around it to show it and hide it depending on the availability of that device. Is everybody still following with that?
And this is solving quite a few problems because let's say 6 months from now, the synchronicity product gets turned on in Canada and India. This means that without this, poor Roberto, our writer, would have to remember, okay, which blog posts and which other pages talked about that, go through each one for Canada and India, and just uncomment or put the text back in. And good luck if it was in a non-English language, if we asked him to do this for Korean or Japanese. It also gets really, really messy. The tags here, you don't have to worry. You write it once, and when you regenerate the CSS hides it or shows it. The drawback, of course, is that it only hides it or shows it at the browser level. If you are a search engine looking at the source code, this still appears in the source code. We talk to our SEO experts, and they say, well, Google really doesn't like, text display none, but they also said you're probably not going to be pinged that deeply, if at all, on here, because they ping you when they detect something like, font color equals white, text font size equals 0.01 pixels, things like that. And this is basically a content model here, and our SEO folks say, don't worry about it. We can probably work on a solve for this later on, but right now, this is going to make our writers very happy. This is not yet launched into production. We're anticipating a launch sometime this coming week once we get back from Berkeley.
once we sober up.
This is being recorded. Okay, so here's what it looks like in practice. So in a site here with the CSS that turns edge 2 off, of course, display none until you look at the source code, and here's what it looks like in Korean. So the trick for the writer is write the copy so that a paragraph can go missing and it'll still make sense. And given the choice between doing that or going back 6 months later and trying to remember, oh, where was this mentioned? I don't remember. They said, yes, I can do this. It's a writing challenge. They see this as a valuable skill.
Because with most of the translation vendors, they want you to send source over, translation soup to nuts happens, and it gets held in translation memory. And if you make a change at source, I would do another round to translation vendor. What has previously gotten us into a bunch of different ways is people were trying to add extra paragraphs. Generally, if you have a model from all of the translation vendors, I have source equals p tag, bunch of sentences in the middle, p tag goes to here, goes to translation. They're expecting that to be translated and that to come back as kind of a mirrored, translated piece. What had happened previously is people would go into Drupal, into their individual language, they would make an edit, add or subtract, try to make this paragraph now equals these 2 paragraphs. It gets dropped the next time, anytime you make another round trip to the translation vendor. So this solves better for that.
Yeah, as of now, there's no real easy method for reconciling locally edited content with new incoming translations. We've got something in the pot that we're thinking of, but maybe next bad camp we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the Ghost language in 35 minutes here. So I do want to have a nice slide to thank all the people who put up with all of our nonsense here. So Kristen and Amy and Adam from Cook 42. I'm sorry they couldn't be here today, but they've been an incredible source of help on this, and it took many pounds of chocolate to convince Kristen to help us out here. Mira Didiger from TMGMT. Damon, my partner in crime here, who said, yes, this is probably doable. Clark Fuller, who is no longer at Lingotech, but he was a remarkable source of information for all things Lingotech. He knew the thing inside and out and gave us many valuable pointers. Smartling, our former translation vendor, we worked with them, Juan and Gawoon, and particularly Adrian. Wonderful sources of information. Tony, our New Zealand dev, who kind of shook his head and said, you guys are crazy, but I like you anyway. Also a huge, major help there. And because Fujifilm is paying for our trip to Berkeley, this is who we are. We're the global leader in making this stuff here. We have a suite of Drupal 8 sites, one Drupal 7 site on the way. By the way, the site you saw here with the Ghost on is Drupal 7. And once we have the Ghost up and running, then we begin the Drupal 8 migration. And we did some tests. Actually, Hook 42 helped us with migrating the Ghost version of Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. Works just fine. They'd never seen something like that before, and I reminded them, Kristen helped us with this, Amy too.
The trickiest part of it is that it is truly a database change.
Yeah, there's no change except for commenting out the stuff that used the available in this region checkbox. There was no change in the code. There's no change in SEO. The XML sitemaps are exactly the same. A user coming to the Ghost site will see absolutely no difference than the non-ghosted site. This all happens under the covers at the SQL level. Also, one of the cool things about working for Sonosite is that part of our mission is to improve health of people around the world. My favorite stories are the ones of doctors who you're either given these systems or loan these systems or have these systems anyway, charge them up, put them in a backpack, and go out into the jungles to cure people who would otherwise not have access to good medical care. And, well, that always makes me feel good to talk about that, because I'm not just doing it for some multinational, but they're actually really, really good people who care about people doing this.
It's an equivalent, we're forbidden to compare it to the word stethoscope. But it is a technology, it's portable ultrasound, so you can get a better image. You can detect things much quicker and in a much richer way.
Yeah, this weighs nothing. Don't steal it. Well, in a backpack, though. In a backpack.
Only carry the backpack.
Giving it to the 90-pound.
But it's doing really important stuff, and
It does weigh more than a laptop, but
Yeah.
in comparison,
not much more than an old style
in
laptop.
comparison to the technology that a lot of these places can really support, it's doing pretty amazing things.
And we do have a newer system now that actually fits in your pocket. If you're interested, Google IVIZ, iViz, and you can see this little pocket ultrasound thing. It's really great for emergency medicine. You go in there, take it out of your pocket, pop it in there, and you got a diagnosis in the back of the ambulance. Hey, any questions on any of this stuff?
You guys actually blog about it too, or is it just?
This is the first time we've been approved to publicly talk about it.
Yeah, because everybody who across the board had to stop and think about it. Well, yeah, that works. We had to, really honestly, where's the hole in this picture? Because the solve that we're trying to do, once you get to the data transformation, once you've made a copy, and this is in the U.S. is an independent country from the source, the rest of everything is really Drupal friendly.
Yeah.
Use powerful things with it after once you do that change.
It's just another multilingual site with a difference. The source language, you can't see it, but everything else is the same. And this is one of the reasons why we waited until to perfect the Ghost on Drupal 7 and then migrate the Drupal 7 Ghost, because, okay, if it's just another multilingual site, it's already Drupal 8 friendly.
Yeah, most translation vendors, because we killed 2 of them, can't get their arms around that you're not just mirroring. Here is English, Spanish, German, and they're all a mirror of that. That's been a puzzler. You can see them have to stop and reconfigure their thought process. Because the result piece of it is pretty simple and pretty elegant. There's not a whole lot of risk once you get the data copied from one to the other.
It's more stable, it's faster because there's less processing going on, and you can bring up other devs in it fairly simply. Just say, okay, we have a separate source language here that users can't see. Oh, okay, that's really easy to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
And the dynamic style sheet generation, that's also not too difficult to come up with. But it really hasn't been done before. So, we think this is kind of a cool thing, and I want to thank you all for bearing with us and listening to our ghost story for Halloween. And I also just want to quickly introduce Sharon Crossa, who I didn't know you were coming. This is a wonderful surprise. Sharon gave me my very first Drupal lesson, which was 5.5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I have an email from you in like early 2014. So yeah, it's 5 years.
Yeah, I've been hired into Sona's site to take care of a really horrible Drupal 6 site.
So the previous people have done horrible things. Horrible, non-Drupally, oh my god, they don't understand what they're doing against.
And me,
Crimes against
I was hired because I've got like 30 years of web experience. I worked
I
with
think
Drupal 5 for about a week.
I think
Years ago.
the brag with Charlie it still kind of impresses me. I worked with him for 5 years. Charlie's been doing this since the first 50 websites.
I brought up two of the first 50 websites in the world when we were at Sun Microsystems. And of course those websites aren't around anymore, but this is the time when you had to download the server code from CERN or NCSA, compile it, find a server to put it on, teach yourself how to write the config file, and then find a browser. At that time it was only Lynx or Mosaic that would work, and then find other websites. And at that time Google didn't exist, Yahoo didn't exist, there was only one search engine, which was, anybody know? The Worm,
Oh, I don't know.
out of UC Colorado Boulder. Then they also brought on Harvest. But yeah, this is so much has changed in such little time. So anyway,
Anyway, I'm very proud of you.
well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I think we did a week.
Yeah.
We had a week, and the poor guy, this thing he inherited.
I heard there was tears.
We're not going to say whose tears it were.
I didn't see the tears.
So you're going to share your slides, Joe?
Let me go back to the top here. Slides are already online and
You see, have training with me for a week, and you could grow up and do this.
yeah. If you're interested in the slides, this is where they are. If you're interested in seeing the ghost in action, it's kind of boring because it looks like any other site. But go to sonosite.com, SONOSITE.com. Probably within about 2 weeks, the ghost should be live.
And I won't notice anything because you're not a dedicated user.
I need to organize this better, so those are the slides, and let me get my contact info up there too. I've done presentations before. I should put these things together, but okay, for next time. So, and that's me if, for fan mail or for bill collectors or whatever. But thank you very much. And hope to see you next Bandcamp, Sharon. It's great to see you again.